Welcome back to Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Elena Saradidis.
And Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And today we're with one of our favorite co-hosts. We brought in Tia Slightham, who is a parenting expert. She's going to talk about all things moving with children.
It's a lot.
A lot?
A lot. I'm actually so excited to have this conversation because I think there are so many times when I find clients are like, how do I navigate this? How do I navigate, I really want to see that house, but we can only get in at 7 and it's my child's bedtime. Or, we're going to do this crazy big stage and we're going to turn our house upside down. And what do I say to my kids when I bring them home? And nothing looks the same. And buying and selling is already stressful enough. And then you layer children and then you layer routine. And then as agents, we strip the routine from the parent and expect it to be even more enjoyable.
And without routine, kids are all over the place. So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big topic. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Thank you. So, I want to kind of touch on, if you don't mind, diving into what do you do in a situation where you really have stripped the kids of what they know, strip them of their house in the sense that when we're staging, it's really disruptive. We are pulling out all of the things that they know, their bedding typically, their toys, their favorite, just about everything, down to tiny little minimal things. So it barely looks like a kid even exists in the house. And then you bring them in and say, you have to live in this for a month.
And they can't understand why nobody wants their holy blanket sitting on the bed. And so then we have tantrums and meltdowns. So one of the things you want to think about when we're transitioning with kids is how can you do it in a way where they still feel like they're a part of something. So one of the tricks and tips I would suggest is you're going to strip everything and you're going to put everything away, but you want to be able to put it back in to some degree. So bins are going to be your best friend. Throwing in toys and blankets and their favorite things, sitting down with your kids if they're old enough. If they're toddlers, you're just probably taking them along for the ride. If they're a little bit older, what are your favorite things? What are the things you want to play with each night when we come home? What are the things that are most special to you? And putting them into a bin so that you can store that in the garage or wherever and then bring that back in, unload it, have a blanket or a mat you can put down and create a little resemblance of something that's going to feel like theirs instead of just putting it all away. Because if you put it all away and you come home and there's nothing to take out, now your kids have nothing to do and you're going to be miserable even when you are at home.
No, it's so true. And it's funny because we just went through a move recently. And to your point, Abby's old enough that we could kind of have those conversations. So we said, Abby, we've taken a lot to storage and so on. So sometimes when she'd go, Mommy, where is this? I'd be like, I don't know. She'd be like, silly Mommy, it's in storage. And I was like, okay, you're getting this. This makes sense to you. Now, there were times when she wasn't as, happy about the fact things are in storage. But I think to your point, you do have to keep the main pieces that make them comfortable.
Yeah, and keeping them in the loop to some degree. So this even takes it back to donating toys and toy rooms becoming a disaster because you accumulate so much crap over the years. You think your kids need it all. They really don't. And before you know it, you have stuff they're not touching, they're not using, they can't find the things they like. So moving is actually a great opportunity to put some of that stuff in storage. And if they're not missing any of it,
don't bring it back.
Then use the lesson to teach your kids how to donate. So I think it kind of does a couple things at once for you.
Totally. Do you have one?
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
We can flip it back to showing with children because sometimes you can't leave them at home and you have to bring them with you to showings. So little tips and tricks on when you're bringing them to showings, how do we keep them calm? They're not running around the house putting their hands on everything, moving things around,
jumping on other people's beds, taking their shoes off. There's so
I used to run into every house and be like, this is my room. And then my brother and sister would be like, this is my room. And my mom's like, we're not buying this house anyway.
Yeah. And even I think, too, when you've got that, I find it's really confusing. I look all the time when I'm showing with, families and they bring their kids. The kids kind of look like, I don't know. Is this our next house? Why am I here? I don't understand. Should I fall in love with it? Should I not? So yeah, how? I think languaging is what I'm starting to pick up on as a common thread. But how do you work through kind of showings and the intricacies of them?
Communication is key. So in general, as parents, we know everything up here. We know it's Monday and our kids are going to school and it's Saturday and they're staying home and now they have Taekwondo or whatever. And then we just expect to say to our kids, get your shoes on, we're going. And they're like, what? Where am I going? So the same thing with moving and big transitions. The more you can explain up front, the better. So if you are, let's say you're in fact moving in a week from now, it's always great to use charts and visual aids so that your kids can see. So maybe you have a chart that has 7 houses and 7 boxes, and every day they cross off leading up to the day that they're going to be saying goodbye to their current house, moving into the next house. Likewise, language when you're going into houses. We're going to look at houses. We're not maybe going to stay in this house. We're just going to see if we like it. Giving your kids something to focus on when they're in the house is key. So let's see if you can count how many rooms there are. Let's see if you can find the biggest room. Tell me at the end what was something that I might have missed that you saw that I didn't see. What could you see in the backyard? So giving your kids almost like a little bit of a scavenger hunt, because if we let our kids run free, they're just going to run free. They're wild little species.
Of course.
So we have to kind of hone in, redirect, and front loading is always important.
No, and I think that's such a great point because that makes it fun. I mean, if you're literally saying, okay, how many, whatever, kitchen knobs can you count, or how many trees are in the backyard, or how many doorknobs are upstairs, that also gives you the ability to be like, okay, you're on a mission. Now, mommy and daddy can have a conversation to decide if we even like this house, because typically speaking, one parent is chasing, the other's trading
and you can't
off.
connect with
There's
your partner
an
on
it. There's like, it's chaos. And you get
Oh my
to the end
God.
of the
I usually
showing.
flip the script. I'm like, now that your kid is actually the real estate agent and your kid's going to show us the house. So, and like, I do this all the time and the kids absolutely love it. Like, I think I'm creating little mini home inspectors or real estate. Mommy, daddy, I think there's water in the ceiling. And they'll like point at it. And I'm like, that's what we're looking for. Like,
Great
you see
eye,
that?
keep it
Great.
going.
Like, keep going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold my hand and show me around this house. And they'll be like, okay, well, this is a washroom. They'll just open doors. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, show me the next thing.
Yeah.
Or I turn
Including
into
them.
like, I'll watch the kid for like 30 seconds. You look through the house, then we'll like switch off.
Yeah.
And I'll let the parents actually walk through the house first, because like it's hard. And it's enough when you're like, is the kid still alive? Has they fallen down the stairs? And I'm like, it's fine. We're going to stay on the main floor. Like, go upstairs, come back down. I'll run up afterwards. Like, I can see it quickly, and then we'll go to the next house. But I actually really enjoy showings with kids. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually one of my favorite things. I'll sometimes like bring little books or like little distractions when I know. So like my big bag of mysteries, like my showing bag for when I show families is bigger than my normal bag. And I'll open up my bag and be like, here's a book, here's a whatever. Like, this is what we're gonna do. I'm like, one more showing and we'll go for ice cream. We'll like go for ice cream.
You are every parent's nightmare. I do not want ice cream at the end of anything.
But this is how we get through all of our showings, though.
Do you then take them back after the ice cream?
Yeah, I take them. Listen, I'll take them home afterwards. Like, I'll be like, listen, it's just 2 more. We're gonna get through this. And like the kid's like, okay, fine. And I'm like, just 1 more house, and then I'll get you ice cream. And they're like, okay, like we're getting ice cream.
Well, one of the things parents can do, and they might be overwhelmed by all this, so they don't want to create more. But as agents, you guys could actually create, like, carry little clipboards with a little pencil and have just like a little picture and word checklist where they have to go in and find, like you were saying, like the doorknobs and the this, and they can count and they can add, and they could literally compile the entire little spreadsheet and then come and show you at the end. So that's something you guys could kind of up level that for take it off the parents.
I love it.
We're so doing this. They're gonna be red, and Erica and I are coming.
But I think it's
Little-
amazing because it's so hard on them. And I mean, I look sometimes and you can just see as stress elevates, the kids elevate, and the meltdowns elevate, and everybody's just
And then
in a
they're
terrible
embarrassed.
spot.
The parents are embarrassed, and they want their kids to listen, but the kids are all over because they're anxious because they know they're in a house because they're leaving their house, and for sure.
And to your point, I don't think communications happen because half the time all I hear is like, "Get off the bed. That's not your bed. Stop that. Don't touch that." And the kids are just like, they're paralyzed. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I in a museum?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then it creates anxiety for everybody.
Yeah. No, totally.
And then let's go kind of back to, when is the right time to move your kids? Like, let's say elementary school, high school, should we be transitioning them based on what they're going into? If you want to upsize or downsize, like, when is the right time to move them? The middle of the school year, I'm sure parents panic. Like, what should you be doing?
I think middle of the school year is always difficult, but kids are resilient. Adults, humans are resilient. Like, we'll figure it out. So I don't want you to think you can't move when you need to move. You need to move. You need to move. I think younger versus older. I think thinking about my own teenage boys who are 13 and 15, moving them out of their high school would be really hard. It's never easy, but I think harder as they get older. So I think you got to do what's going to work for you. Beginning of the school year is always a better transition because there's going to be probably some other new kids as well. You're not going to be the only one. Everybody's not already going to be in a rhythm. And I think ahead of high school, if you can do it.
No, I think that makes sense. And I mean, I tend to find a lot of families do try and move with the school year. It's rare that someone wants to move in the middle. But to your point, sometimes
it
circumstance
happens.
changes. And I guess this probably circles right back to communication. It's really how you communicate that prior to it happening.
And would you almost, because like we are making it more of a parenting segment, would you almost recommend that they leave the kid in the same school until they finish that year and then move them the next year, even if they do move homes?
If it's possible. If it's like a 2-hour drive, I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm moving my kid. I know it might not be easy on them, but I'm moving them. But if you can do that, at least you're gearing up. You're giving them a chance to have closure, giving them a chance to finish the school year. So I think that would actually probably be helpful if you can manage it.
Let's jump. I know bedtimes is a big one, and I see this a lot because, sometimes you just struggle with, when you can get a buyer through your own property and it's 7 or 7:30 when they can make it because it's post-work and post, whatever they've needed to do. And I've got clients going, oh my gosh, but that's bedtime. Or same thing, we've got to go see a house and it is right over bedtime. So any tips or tricks that you could kind of point us in the direction on juggling showings and bedtimes?
So bedtimes are key. Like over 90% of behavioral issues can stem from lack of quality quantity sleep. So even I was just on a coaching call with my clients, and she was like, we went to the Jays game and we were up late, and my 5-year-old just keeps hitting my 3-year-old. And I'm like, well, survive or thrive at this moment in time, because once they're tired, they are just their own entity. So we do want to keep in mind that they're probably going to be cranky and irritable if you're going to have to do that. But again, if you have to do it, you have to do it. So preparing them in advance, going to bed early the night before, knowing that the next night you won't do a showing or you won't go to a showing, so that you can catch up on sleep. I honestly think a late night here and then an early night the next, you really can keep things pretty much on track. Where parents get in trouble is usually their kids stay up late one night, and then the next night they're putting the bed the same time they normally would, and then you actually never catch up on the lost sleep. So you actually need to go to bed a little bit earlier when you've had a late night, and then you even yourself out.
Right. And catch that sleep back up. And I guess to your point, it's really important that you're just doing it here and there, and you're recognizing that it's a one-off. It's not every night that you're seeing a house at 7 or every night that you're permitting a showing. So I guess probably also important to really screen those late night showings that you're going to let through to make sure that they're the actual showing you want to be throwing the schedule off over.
And if you have family in town, I mean, I never had that luxury to have family around all the time, but if you do, then maybe plan in advance that they sleep at grandparents' house or they do something so that you can relax and not worry about it so much. Honestly, proactively plan is going to be the key to most things success with kids.
Yeah. And I think, too, in different markets, when the market's a little bit hotter, like sometimes you'll move the family for that little period of time.
Totally.
In this kind of market, though, when it's so uneasy and like it will take longer for everything to sell, it's a little bit harder to be like, go for a few days and come back.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, we need to sell the house. How are we going to sell the house? You're going to be in here while we sell the house. And that means, like, I guess we're driving the kid out of the house at 8 p.m. if we have an 8 p.m. showing.
Yeah.
Like, it happens. It's unfortunate. But if we don't let the showings in, too, that could have been your buyer. And they
Well,
didn't
that's
see
the
it.
hardest part. I
Yeah.
find sometimes when it's like the showing comes in, I'm like, yes, we have a showing. They're like, but it's bedtime. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do because I'm a parent, but I don't
Yeah.
because we need that showing. But I also understand that massive change and transition wreaks havoc on the relationship and the child and the entire dynamic. So, it's how you dance around it, but it's also how you get the right advice so that you can accommodate the showing and not have parents wanting to kill me for wanting the showing and their child for being overtired, because overtired is no fun at all.
No, especially during the school year. They're up late and then they're having to go to school the next day, but trying to make it fun. If you've got to bounce out of the house at 8, make it an adventure. Like kids really do love that. So make it really exciting. Like everybody go out in their jammies and go do something. Like you can make it fun. I know we're exhausted as parents and we don't want to do that all the time, but when you have those types of moments, it's good to do.
Yeah. No, and I think the big thing is what I hear too is it's the attitude that you go into that with. So if you're going into being like, we're going to make the best of it versus like, oh my gosh, here we go. And that makes a huge difference too to the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that sort of stems into all this is the fact that parents often don't know the why behind their kids' behaviors. So they're living day in and day out, just flying by the seat of their pants, guessing and second guessing, like, why are my kids not listening? Why are they throwing a tantrum? Why are they yelling? Why are they screaming? Why are they hitting? And they don't know. And then you throw something into the mix like, hey, I need to take them out of the house at 8. I need to have them listen at a showing. And now they're completely overwhelmed because their daily parenting is already overwhelming. And then you're adding another layer. So one of the things that all parents need to know is that parenting's not intuitive. It is a learned skill. And when you really learn to identify the why behind behavior, it's going to help you set them up for success. And if you don't know that, you're forever scrambling. So even if we look at kids who are having tantrums or outbursts in the house while you guys are giving showings, most of the time parents don't know why. They're just like, why won't my kid be quiet? This is embarrassing. What's going on? Quiet down, calm down, knock it off. But there is a deep-rooted reason and meaning behind each of those behaviors. I did a segment on this yesterday, actually, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns. And your child needs 2 different strategies of support for each of those. And so I think as parents, if you know you're going to be venturing into moving and having this big change in your life, taking some time to learn some skills around parenting is only going to help it be easier.
Oh, for sure. And I think the big thing to your point is, I think there's so much behind it where I find I'll see all the time, someone has a meltdown and they're like, sorry, it's a one-off or it's a bad day. And you can tell they're really embarrassed. And I mean, I'm not the expert, you are, but I'm sure you would sit there being like, no, this is not a one-off. No, this is not. This is a rooted, pattern.
This is the one-off this hour. This hour was the one-off.
But it is. It's a skill, parenting. It's not, you're not born knowing how to parent.
No.
And then you're definitely not born knowing how to parent through stress and transition and change, which is real estate. Yeah.
And so many kids and just humans in general suffer from anxiety, whether it's transitional anxiety, being dropped off at school, changes in their daily routines, moving. So understanding really what your kids need and the why behind their behavior will help you really dive into what they need if they're having some sort of anxiety.
Totally. So now, given this is going to stem past real estate, for those looking to actually figure out the why behind the behavior, how do we find you? How do people get all the good from you? Because you've got a lot of good to share.
Yeah, thank you. So parents can find me on Instagram at Tia Parenting Coach, but I do run a 12-week coaching program with parents from around the world, which is amazing to see, helping parents, whether you have toddlers all the way up through the teen years, to become the expert in their behavior, to feel calm and confident, and to be able to really build that bond and connection without yelling or anger or punishment. So Instagram's a great one, or my website, tiaslightham.com.
Love it.
Once again, it's Elena Saradidis.
And Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And this was Property Playbook. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.